Good morning and welcome to Project Reconnect. This is one of our wellbeing events by Corporate Wellbeing Hub. I'd like to start today's session by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I pay my respect to elders past and present. Today I'm dialing in from the land of the Bunurong and the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. I'd also like to acknowledge anyone with lived experience or caring for those with mental ill health. My name's Carly Phillips. I am a wellbeing keynote speaker. I'm a researcher and CEO of Corporate Wellbeing Hub. I'm a nutritionist and mental health first aider, but today I am here to introduce Charlotte Jamieson, who will facilitate this session for us. I'll hand over to you for introduction. Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you, Carly. I have the pleasure of working with Corporate Wellbeing Hub under Carly, and I am a wellbeing culture and leadership specialist with over 20 years of working within the industry, all underpinned by formal study in psychology and positive psychology and wellbeing and mindfulness and coaching. And essentially, I just love to learn. So I've pretty much studied it if I can. And today I'm here to talk to you about Project Reconnect and how we can shift the dial of psychosocial risk. Because really, when we have positive connections, it acts as a protective factor and a stress buffer towards all the psychosocial hazards that we know. So shall we kick off?
Let's do that.
All right. So welcome everybody. Today we have a short hour together, and we are not going to experience every single tool that I do share, but we're going to have a lovely taster of what you could be able to experience with one of these workshops. So we're going to talk about appreciating the current landscape of the workplaces at the moment and its effects on employee experiences. And then we're going to really appreciate, well, what is workplace connection? What is social connection? What is it all about? And how do we do it? And the next part will, of course, be going through the art of connection framework, which is underpinned by this idea of social connection theory and rooted in the science of it. And so we can really explain how we can go about making these connections. So appreciating the current landscape and its effect. I think it's fair to say that we all are experiencing very different kind of workplaces. And I just thought I might do a whiteboard here just to see what sort of a workplace you might be experiencing. So I'm just going to stop sharing here, and then I am going to do a whiteboard. Here we go. Now, can you see the whiteboard okay there?
Yes, got it.
Excellent. So if you can head to the T right there and let me know, what are you in a hybrid scenario, or do you have a space where you can hang out for lunch? Do you have, a great manager, or do you have any toxic, what are your workplace relationships maybe?
There's been some interesting conversations in the media about this, Charlotte. Did you see some of the parties in the election campaign are saying, we're going to make people come back to the office 4 days a week or 5 days a week? And I've been horrified by some of those really archaic mindsets about how we work. I thought we could have gone so much further down the track from that.
It's interesting how we sort of go one way, and then it's just been this big, actually, fear. I think it's run off fear.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to, everything? So let's just get everyone back. And of course, some companies are doing it better than others in a way of communicating effectively how you get back to the workplace, and giving people some choice in that, or empowerment on how that happens. We have shared team spaces to share inside and outdoors in the community garden. Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, that's really nice. Oh, that's nice to see. Work in a community health space, great managers, working from home there. I've got a bit of a hybrid situation when I work from home, but then of course I go out and get to meet real people when I run face-to-face workshops, which is really helpful as well. So I think it's fair to say that we are experiencing different things, and of course there are some people who go back to work and find when they do go back to work, they're all on Teams meeting or Zooms meeting, and it's very hard to you know to work effectively when that happens. So I'm just going to reshare the screen so that we can continue on there. Okay. And we've got the screen back in action.
Yep, we do.
Fantastic. Okay. So what happens when we change and ask people to go back to the office without, I'm just going to show the video panel so I can see you again. Yeah, what happens when we dictate and tell everyone to go back to the office on different times, or everyone's back in the office and there's Teams meeting, or there's a bit of disgruntlement with the management? What happens is we might experience what's called psychosocial hazard. So we up the risk when we do these changes. We have these changes and we haven't communicated effectively. We really up the risk of poor change management. We up the risk of not having respectful workplace relationships. And of course, if there's not a great place for people to hang out and connect socially, we might find that there's poor workplace relationships there. If we don't have that ability to connect with our people effectively, we find it difficult to have those conversations around high and low job control. And of course, maybe work might be okay, but maybe the emotional demand might be extremely high if you've got those conflicts within the teams, or not able to have that psychological safety to actually say your piece. And so we're going to really focus on building connected workplaces so that we can minimize the risks of these psychosocial hazards. And we know it works because while job stresses and job demands can really predict burnout and intention to leave in a workplace, having trusted co-workers in the workplace really reduces this detrimental effect. And I've been really privileged to be able to see a number of different workplaces. I've run a number of different consultation processes as people are starting to understand where they're at with regards to the legislation. I've been really able to see what's happening underneath the carpet, underneath the mat, so to speak. And time again, I've heard stories of employees where they've had to endure toxic relationships, or they're enduring really, really high work demands, or a lot of change and restructure. And my curious question is always, why are they still here? Why are they still enduring all of this really tough things that are really impacting their mental health? And every single time when we've uncovered what's happening in terms of their relationship with their direct leader, line manager, or a direct relationship within their team, I've seen that they have actually had a really positive, psychologically safe relationship. So they've always had at least one person that has their back. And that means that they are buffered against all of this stress. So it's really acting as a protective factor. It's not great that they're experiencing all the rest, but it's really helping them in that moment. So it is vital for people. Now, when we are experiencing toxic relationships or all these sort of psychosocial hazards, it can be extremely lonely. And of course, isolation is actually one of the psychosocial hazards. So people mentioned that they were working from home, and that can be a physical isolation. And I just want to determine the difference here. So being physically isolated can actually be harmful for our mental health. Absolutely. When you're separate from someone and you're not involved, that can actually really harm us. However, we can still feel lonely and disconnected when we're part of a team and when we're all in the office together if we don't have those functional, connected, quality relationships. So loneliness really occurs when there's that mismatch, when you have this expectation and then there's that gap between that, what you expect to experience and what you're actually experiencing, or what you're perceiving to actually experience. And that's where loneliness can happen. So loneliness can happen to anyone, where we all can experience loneliness. It's a biological need within us. So just like thirst and hunger, it's our body saying to us, this doesn't feel good. You're a social being and you need to connect with someone. And that's exactly what that loneliness feeling is actually driving us towards, connecting with someone. And this happened to me. I really experienced it when I took myself off to live in France when I was about 22. I've always had this lifelong dream of going to France and being French. I've got some French history in my background, and it was always just romanticized in my family. And I wanted to be French. I wanted to get back to my roots, so to speak. And so I took myself off and I plonked myself in France. And there I was, just having finished studying psychology at uni. So I had all these great psychological tools up my sleeve in order to keep my mental health well. I'm a bit of a sports fanatic, so I always do exercise, and I've always looked after my health and dietary needs and those sorts of things. So I'm ticking all the boxes. I'm in France. I'm eating the right things. I'm moving my body. I'm sleeping. I'm also, got some great psychological tools to help me. I'm doing some mindfulness and those sorts of things. But you know what? There was this moment, and I distinctly remember this moment where I woke up in the morning and I thought, if I stay in bed just one extra hour, that's one less hour I have to do this day. And that really took me by surprise. And I thought, wow, that's a really depressive thought to have. And I thought, how come I'm feeling like this when I'm living my dream and I'm eating well and doing all the right things? Like, what's missing? And luckily, I was able to appreciate that it was this sense of community and this sense of belonging. I was there by myself. And so it did lead me to go and um, book into a French Alliance Française, a French learning. And there I met a Norwegian girl who had French boyfriends. And I kind of piggybacked on all their friends there, which was really great. And I did start to feel a sense of community. But unfortunately, I'd already booked my return flight. And so once I'd started to feel like really part of something and really getting to be a bit French, unfortunately, I did end up leaving. But it was a really great lesson to me. And of course, it's really helped me appreciate the work that I'm doing now, how important that sense of connection is for us and our well-being. Loneliness, it costs. It costs the company, it costs us, and anybody can feel lonely. And of course, loneliness can actually spread. It's very hard to get someone back into the fold, into the team, and have a sense of belonging once they've started feeling loneliness. And of course, if they are feeling this loneliness, it does spread. It's an emotional contagion. And so we can be unaware of how it is affecting us. And the person who has experienced loneliness can actually be unaware of how they're affecting other people as well, because it's all subconscious how it works. But yeah, it really does spread. So we've got to make sure that we are aware of this idea of people feeling disconnection, because it's not good for us. We can experience sleep issues, depression, anxiety, decreased immunity, heart disease. It's been shown that it can actually be likened to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. So it's not good for us. It can also increase our cognitive bias towards the negative. So we might magnify already negative effects of social stresses in the workplace. So it's not a great place to be in. So let's appreciate quality workplace connections. What are they? Why why are they so good? Well, they increase job satisfaction, creativity, competence, and performance, and they really help to prevent chronic work stress and workplace burnout. Connections really matter. We're at work a third of our every day, so really making sure that we feel this connected at work is a really good thing. Now I'm going to share with you a funny little video. I hope it doesn't offend anyone. It's really meant to just make light of the need for a respected workplace. So here's the funny video. There we go.
What's the advice you give to your younger self?
Spend less time with their kids.
Spend less.
Less time with their kids. They just waste your time.
I can't believe a father would say spend less time with your kids.
No, dickheads.
What's he saying?
Dickheads.
Dickheads!
Thank you, Simon, for your interpretation.
Andy, what don't you understand about?
Okay, so that was just a light humor around this idea of let's spend time with really respectful people in the workplace. And so what does that look like? What is that? Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. That's what we want. That's what we want more of. That's what it feels like. And so if you really think about a time when you've experienced that, you can really understand that there are 3 areas of social connection that are so very, very important. When you have a quality workplace or a quality connection with someone, you have structure, you have function, and you have quality. Okay. So structure is, do you have someone? So do you have someone in your team? Do you have a team, or are you kind of on an island somewhere, isolated from everyone? Are you part of a team? Okay, tick, you're part of a team. Excellent. Now, does your team actually support you? So if you're inundated with work, do you actually have someone who can support you in this? Can you say, hey, can you help me out with this? And then the third option is, are they a nurturing relationship? So do you actually want to ask that person for help? Or are you going to get the cold shoulder and it's going to be really awkward and unpleasant if you ask them for help? So it's really important that you get all 3 areas. And the way I like to remember it for myself is I think about, okay, so, if I'm moving, this is just another funny thing that I just remember. It's okay. If I'm moving house, right, do I have a mother-in-law that might be able to come and help me unpack some boxes? Tick, right. Do I feel like I can ask her to come and help me? Do I have that kind of relationship? Yes, tick, right. Quality. Do I actually want her around? And I think that's just, for me, that's a really funny way of going, okay, like as social connection, you do have to have all 3 areas. So of course, in the workplace, great if you have an open area for everybody to come and have lunch, amazing. Or if you've provided, drinks on a Friday night or whatever, or you've got a pool table there, excellent. You've got people in the team, you've got the pool table that everybody can come around and play in. But do you actually want to play pool with the other people? Like, is it a nurturing relationship? So when you are thinking about designing your team for social connection, here are some of the things that you really need to think about. Do we have a space to hang out? Do we have Slack in our work day to actually create time for these connections to build? So do we have any planned social activities? Is there at least one person you can trust or who can support you? Are there buddy systems that you can create to enable this kind of trust and support in people? Are there any toxic relationships within the team? And what can you do about that? Have you noticed that? And what are the options there? So I think it's really vital that we start to really think about designing for this social connection as well. All right, so now we've understood what our workplace can look like, and we've understood the the detrimental effects of disconnection and loneliness. We've understood the positive effects of positive connection. Now we can really start to look at, okay, what is the framework that we can actually lean on in order to create these positive connections? So this framework is called the Art of Connection framework, and it's a framework I built, and it's really rooted in this idea of social connection theory. What's important is that we build awareness. We attune to what is needed for ourselves and for other people. Okay, it's really important that we have this level of self-awareness when we go into a relationship, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And then, of course, when we are responding, we need to make sure that this relationship is quality, right? So we need to make sure that the responses that we have are positive connections. And then, of course, you need to have a structure. So you actually need to make sure that you have these actual connections available to you. So that's where you create tiny little behaviors in order to create these beautiful connections in the workplace. So usually I can talk through a number of different tools when we talk about building awareness. And today I'm really just going to focus on this idea of the autonomic nervous system and sitting inside the window of tolerance, and how you can build your own window of tolerance in order to manage your nervous system. And then we're going to go through a little exercise called Know Your Stories. And that's just so you know where you are at in your nervous system. So let's talk a little bit about awareness. Sorry. Our connection with others can only be as deep as our connection with ourselves. So it really allows us to understand, okay, what am I giving off? And of course, when if you can understand and appreciate, when you're stressed or when you're distracted, you cannot co-regulate with someone. You cannot actually come in and have a calm and wonderful conversation with someone, connection with someone. A performance conversation can go horribly wrong if you are not connected with yourself first and in a regulated space. So what this looks like is Dr. Dan Siegel has a wonderful exercise where if you take your hand like this and then you make it into a fist, right? He says this is a good enough hand model. Okay, so what happens here is this is the limbic system, your emotional part of your brain, and this is your prefrontal cortex. Okay, so this is where all your planning, or your grounded sort of reactions, responses to things, your curiosity, your openness, that's where this comes from. Okay, your memory and the ability to function as a human being essentially comes from your prefrontal cortex. And so when you are stressed, what happens is, have you heard of the amygdala hijack? Well, that actually ends up flipping your lid. Okay, so it flips that connection between your prefrontal cortex and your limbic system, so that all you've got, you no longer have your prefrontal cortex, you're operating from your emotional part of your brain. So if you think about going into a performance conversation with someone or trying to have a connection with someone, and you're operating from your limbic system, this emotional part, how do you think it's going to go, right? It might be quite defensive, okay? It might actually escalate really rather quickly. So what you want to make sure is you have this self-awareness and go, where am I at in my nervous system? Am I stressed? Have I flipped my lid? And what can I do to put my lid down in order to have a connected, calm, conversational connection with someone? So that's essentially what we're trying to do in the awareness section here. And it's really helpful to understand, well, what are all these stresses that might be stressing you out, because then you can start to do something about it. You can go, oh, I know that outside money might outside triggers like work or money or relationships or, life events might be stressing me out at the moment. Or maybe it's my thoughts and beliefs. Maybe I have a continual kind of playlist of unhelpful thoughts, like I'm not good enough. These are really minimal kind of influence to our stress. What we know is this bottom-up stress is actually 80% of how we respond to things. So our biological and physiological responses to things actually happen without our awareness and have a massive influence on whether we are detecting safety or detecting threat. So that's why I have a neurobiological viewpoint of this. I really look at it from this standpoint of your nervous system, because it's happening underneath everything and without our awareness. So when we talk about stress, historically, we used to think that we were either in sympathetic, we were either, fight or flight, we were either stressed, or we were either not. We were in parasympathetic, rest and digest. Okay, so we thought it was very binary, was great. You have stress and then you don't. Okay, quite easy to operate from that because you're like, great, there's no stress. Let's just experience the relax now. But unfortunately, we've come, well, rather fortunately, that we've actually learned this about ourselves. We've come to realize that it's a little bit more nuanced than that. So Dr. Steve Porges and Deb Danner has helped to interpret Porges's work. They've learned that there's this idea of a polyvagal lens, a polyvagal theory. And all that means, I'm going to say some big words, but essentially all that means is there's many different pathways. And just because you're not feeling stress anymore doesn't necessarily mean that your body isn't feeling stress anymore. And so I want to flesh this out just a little bit more in another model called this window of tolerance that Dr. Dan Siegel has also shared with us. So this idea of window of tolerance means that when we are in this calm, regulated position, we're able to feel grounded, flexible, open, curious, and present. Okay, we've got our prefrontal cortex down. But what happens as humans is sometimes we go into this hyperarousal, which is another one of those pathways that I just spoke to earlier. And if we don't close that stress cycle, we might fall down into hypoarousal. So to flesh these out a little bit more, hyperarousal is any shades of, a bit of chaos or restlessness or anxiety or overwhelm or hypervigilance or, that high energy. Okay, that's when we're mobilized in this unsafe way. We think, oh my goodness, I've got something to do. Can be helpful. Mobilization can be really helpful. But you don't want to get stuck there, because if you get stuck there, then you can fall down into this idea of hypoarousal, which is your freeze state, which is more of a dissociation, helplessness, withdrawal, loneliness, depression, shame, burnout. Now, sometimes it's really helpful in a traumatic instance, for instance, to experience dissociation. Okay, our bodies are designed in a way that really does help us. Now, I'm not going to go into trauma at the moment. We're not going to discuss that. That's something different. What we don't want is for us to be stuck in this hypoarousal state, because as humans, what we're meant to do is just go up and down. Okay, that's a regulated nervous system, being able to mobilize and then come back to safety, and then maybe experience a bit of hypoarousal but come back into safety. Okay, so we want to make sure that we do interventions to grow this window of tolerance. And the good news is we can grow this window of tolerance. We'll all have different sizes of tolerance, but we can actually grow it through interventions, through toning our vagus nerve. So if you've heard of the vagus nerve, it runs from the base of your brain down and innervates all your major organs, essentially. And it wanders through. So vagus wanders all the way through. And so it's really, really helpful for us to actually do things that are going to help tone this vagus nerve, because our vagus nerve fosters empathy and it acts as that bridge between you and others. If we have a toned and working vagus nerve, it means our nervous system can be regulated. It means that we can connect with others more effectively. Okay, so it's really about this awareness of, okay, well, how can I tone this vagus nerve? How do I make sure that it's it's tip top and ready to rock? And you'll need to know where you're at. Okay, you'll need to know if you're in hyper arousal, hypo arousal, or in regulation, and what are the causes of those sorts of things, and then how do I get back to that window of tolerance? So there's sort of 3 steps, and we're going to go through this first step, noticing where you are. How do you know what, because it happens all without our awareness, how do you actually know what's going on? And knowing your stories is a fantastic way to help you identify where you might be in your nervous system right now. So knowing your stories, what this looks like is you might spill your coffee, okay, all down your front. You might spill your coffee. Now, you would have a different response depending on where you're at in your nervous system. So let's say when you're in that flat state, that hypoarousal state, your story would be something akin to, ugh, my life is over. This is the worst thing that could have possibly happened right now. Why would I even bother going on to the next meeting or whatever? Got coffee down my front. It's over. All right. It's pretty defeatist. Okay. When you're in sympathetic states, so the hyperarousal state, and you spill coffee all over your front, you might have some pretty choice words that you might be saying right now. You might be like, rah, 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 and storm off in a rage or whatever it is. But when you spill your coffee down your front and you're in this ventral vagal state, this window of tolerance state, you might be able to go, oh, well, that's not what I wanted. I can't believe this has happened. Okay, what can I do? Can I fix it? No. Put my blazer around it. Okay, what are my options? Okay, you have way more options available to you because you're in this clear mind with your prefrontal cortex down. Funnily enough, this actually happened to me I was speaking at a conference yesterday, and I was right after lunch. And of course, I chose to have the tomatoey sauce beef brisket thing or whatever. And of course, I was in beige pants and beige top. And of course, I gesticulate and I talk when I was speaking to people, and I got tomato sauce down my pants. And I was like, I'm going on stage, and it was being recorded in like 20 minutes. What am I going to do? So luckily I was in a fairly regulated state because I was able to quickly grab some, sparkling water, douse my pants with it, somehow miraculously got the sauce out. But then of course I had a wet pants. It looked like I'd weed my pants. So then I had to go into the ladies' room and use the hand dryer. It was a very movie kind of, I felt like I was on a movie, trying to dry my pants anyway, all's well, it all worked out. But I had to be in that state of mind to be able to go, okay, what can I do? Like, what's in my control right now? And yeah, it's really important to know where you're at, because then you can really, it really helps you choose the intervention that you're going to choose to get you back. Like, say if I was in that stress state and I was really nervous about presenting in 20 minutes, and suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, it's all over. And I was running around like a chicken without a head. And then the tomato sauce would have stayed on my pants. Okay. I probably needed to do, in that moment, I probably would have needed to do some sort of breathing technique in order to get back to a regulated state, so that then I could go and do what I could do to fix my pants or whatever. So really noticing where you're at is a really important step for all of it. So we're going to have a go at noticing where you're at. This is your turn now. Let's say you're missing a deadline, and you've got this story in your mind. Let's say it's, maybe do this retrospectively. Okay, so maybe think of a time when you have almost started to miss a deadline and something's looming, and if you can really identify the story that might have been going on in your head. Was your story, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss the deadline, this is the worst thing possible, blah, 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 blah? Or was it, oh, this is over. Everything, like, it's, what's the point? It's all, it's all gone. Or maybe it was, okay, step by step, I can do this, I can do this. And I wonder if you'd be so kind as to share in the chat box, maybe a story that you have been able to identify around missing a deadline. And then together we'll be able to say whether that might be this, the hyper arousal or the hypo arousal. So let's have a look here, just while everybody writes in the comment box. Oh my goodness, no electricity, no Wi-Fi. I had online meetings all day and I had to juggle hotspot batteries. Was very stressful day. So, okay, so that was the experience. I wonder what your story was then. What was your story? Was it, this is all too hard. I may as well give up. Or was it, come on, we can do this, we can do this. This is a challenge. We've got this, or was it, choice word, can't do this. I wonder what your story was. And of course, if anybody else can find out what their story was, it'd be really helpful, to be great to see. Okay, I thought it would be okay. Let's positive thought. We'll set up a plan B, and a little bit worried all day. And a little bit worried all day is fair enough. Absolutely. So it sounds like you had that prefrontal cortex down and you were in that window of tolerance and you were like, well, what's the next step? Let's, we've got plan B. We can work through this. Okay, it's going to have some angst. Of course, it's a very stressful situation, but you've got that plan. So excellent, identifying that you were in that window of tolerance. Okay, so my engine of the car, was smoking. I was calm and I directed the car to safety without panic. Well done, because I'm not sure I would have been calm in that situation if the engine was smoking, but that's really great. So it sounds like you were able to operate from that window of tolerance there, Vicky. So that's really great. So see how it can really help you identify, okay, where am I at here? And of course, we're human, we fluctuate all the time. So what I really do want to suggest as well is to really be curious, really be compassionate towards yourself. So compassion is this idea of giving ourselves unconditional kindness. Okay, so really being a kind and wise friend to yourself. If you do note that you're in this flat state, this hypoarousal, and you're like, this is all over, what's the point? It's so hard, whatever. Give yourself a little bit of compassion, okay? Compassion, Kristen Neff has a really great analogy of saying, compassion is like you have a sick child with a cold and you can't take the cold away, but you can offer kindness while they suffer with the cold. And I think that's a really beautiful way of showing what compassion actually is. You can't take away the pain. You can't take away the stress of the Wi-Fi or the smoking engine, but you can kind of offer yourself kindness while you're dealing with the suffering. Okay, so you only suffer once. The Buddhists have this idea of the two arrows, and the first arrow is the arrows of suffering, of car is smoking or the Wi-Fi is down. But the second arrow is you adding to that suffering. And the Buddhists, you don't have to have that second arrow. You can give yourself kindness while the first arrow is painful and is hard. I think that's a really wonderful way of just giving yourself that kindness when you identify the stories that might be happening for yourself. And then, of course, befriending your nervous system. What can you do to make sure in those moments that you can do what's needed to get yourself into that regulation of that window of tolerance? And there are any number of things that you can do. And of course, I don't have time to go into all of them at the moment, but it's always fun to delve deep into those things. And just, the quick fix is always your breath. You have it with you everywhere you go. It's free. Slow breathing is going to help you into that parasympathetic nervous system. Short, sharp breathing is going to help you mobilize out of that hypoarousal to get you back into that regulation. And of course, music is a wonderful way of entering that state. So if you listen to type of music, just Empathy makes you feel calm. If you're a bit flat and you need a little bit of extra, then you can turn on something. It's going to give you a bit more boost. Now, even if you don't like this song, you can appreciate that it's got a bit of bop. All right. So you can add your own playlist. You can add your own playlist and see what works for you. It's a really it's a shortcut to your nervous system, music and breathing. So that's awareness. And now we're going to talk about response. And again, I've got a number of different tools that we can dive into in order to create positive connections in the workplace. And we're just going to discuss a couple of them, which is mutual respect and trust. So as great leaders, we really want to make sure that we're doing all of these things in order to create quality connections in our teams. And specifically, these interactions are going to help build the well-being of our people and the connections of our people. So mutual trust, how do you build mutual trust? Well, it does start with listening, active listening, and I'm sure that's no news to anybody. But I wonder if you've heard of these three things. So when we listen to people, we can listen to win. So what that means is if somebody's come to you and said, I've got this presentation to do and I am so nervous. I just think it's so scary and I just don't know what to do. And you go, you'll be great. You'll be amazing. You'll be fine. That's listening to win. Okay. That's just saying, no, it's going to be fine. All right. But the other person is like, no, I've just told you that it's not going to be okay. And so it's not really actively listening. And then there's this idea of listening to fix. Now, this is my default. I tend to go to it always. I can't stand when people are, having trouble. I'm like, I'm going to fix it for you. Yes, not helpful. Because what that looks like is someone come to you, I'm really scared about this presentation I'm going to make. And I go, it's okay. Just, have your key steps and work through it that way and take a deep breath and focus on grounding your energy on the feet and you'll be fine. Like it'll work. Or, picture them all naked. I think that's what people say, isn't it? And that's listening to fix. But people are like, no, I don't need you to tell me all of that. I just need you to know that I'm actually really nervous about this presentation. Okay. And so that's where listening to learn comes in. And so you go, oh, wow, that must feel pretty uneasy for you. Yeah, it does. It's like, oh, where do you feel it most? Do you feel it in your tummy or do you feel it in your head? Or like, what does it feel like for you? And it's like, oh, this and this. And I wonder if you've ever done a presentation before where you've felt nervous, but you've kind of kicked it, like kicked some goals there. Yeah, I have, and just being curious and learning more about their experience and learning about them rather than putting stuff on them. And that can be a really amazing way of building mutual respect with people and, of course, creating this idea of quality relationships. And then, of course, you want to build trust, okay? And that's psychological safety. So a really great formula that you can take away and build psychological safety in your team is to think about, okay, does the person have a rationale for speaking up and sharing that they've made a mistake, or speaking up and sharing that they've got this idea that they're not sure other people will think is good? You need to help them appreciate that it's good for you as an individual and it's good for the team if you speak up. That's their rationale. We want you to do this. It's good for the team. It's good for overall. Then you need to give them the opportunity, because it's no good saying, we want you to speak up. It's good for you. It's good for everyone. But my door is always closed and I'm never available to chat. Or at the end of a meeting, I give you 30 seconds to speak up and that's it. What are you going to do with that? So you need to create that forum where people can feel safe that they speak up. And then, of course, it's the reinforcement. So let's just say they feel the impetus to speak up. They've got the opportunity to speak up. They speak up and you just go, oh, you roll their eyes at them. or you don't give them positive reinforcement. It is really important that you say, thank you so much for sharing that idea. Thank you for letting me know that you've made this mistake. This is really great because we can get onto it now. We can learn from it and we can grow. I really love your input. Maybe we can't do it right yet, but I think you're onto something, or I think, you really can develop these ideas further. Whatever it is, really giving the positive reinforcement. So this is by Amy Edmondson and Connie Noonan Hadley, a really great little formula to stick to in order to create psychological safety in the team. And of course, respond in quality ways to ensure positive connections. So there we go. That's just a nice little snippet into what you would do with awareness building and what you would do with responding positively. And then, of course, you've got these tiny behaviors. We need to feed the structure. So we need to start small because social fitness, quality connections grow. It's like a muscle. We become better at connecting as long as we use it. Our muscles, as long as we create this social fitness. So you need to be able to do things that are going to feed this structure and create that social fitness. So there are any number of things that you might like to do. Is it creating buddy systems? Is it planning, a bit of slack into the day? Is it celebrating moments? Exercise challenges is a really great way of bonding people together. Focusing on reward and recognition, embracing those little micro interactions, whether you meet each other at the, making a tea together or walk past each other's desk or whatever it is. Always being grateful for people's input, building rapport through common interests. Now, this was one of your clients, Carly, that Nestle had a wonderful option of creating a soup club, which I heard all about in a case study they shared. It was so wonderful, this soup club of creating quality connections. And we didn't get to the reciprocity ring today, but that's just another way that you can do it. So I just wondered if anybody might be thinking, okay, there's something I can do to make sure that I build a tiny habit around connection. So anything that we've briefly spoken about, whether it might be building awareness for yourself and tuning into your nervous system, or it might be focusing on a buddy system, or it might be when I listen to someone, I'm going to listen to learn rather than listen to fix. Or it might be knowing your stories, or anything that we've discussed today, or anything that's on there that you might think, oh, I might be able to focus on when I go away at the end of this webinar and get back into life, because we know these things are just 10% of the process. And it's really important to actually do something different. So I wondered if you might be able to share on the chat line, or of course, if you're feeling brave to unmute yourself and just share what's something that you intentionally want to go away and do differently or tweak in order to build social connection, whether it's awareness in yourself, response to others, or building the structure. So I'll give you a little second just to think about what that might be, and go ahead and share it on the comment box or raising your hands.
Charlotte, the listen to fix really resonated with me because that is my natural response. Like, I'm the rescuer. So as soon as anyone says anything, my immediate thing is, how am I going to fix this for you or with you, or in any way? We just need to resolve this straight away. And what I learned is that actually drains me of so much energy because I'm constantly trying to fix other people. But also, it doesn't help them in any way whatsoever. They just keep coming back to me instead of learning how to do that for themselves. So I started to step back and go, I kind of never called it listen to learn, but that's what it is now that I can see the way you've described that. It's giving them space to listen, but for them to kind of come up with a solution.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, thanks for sharing that.
Isn't it? Such a trap, especially for women. We like to just fix everybody else.
I know. Well, and it's also being comfortable with discomfort. I think we've all been sort of nurtured in a way that discomfort is not okay. So if you're crying or if you're upset, like, let's just fix it and we'll just, we'll move on, or you're not allowed to kind of feel that discomfort. And actually, it's just part of being human.
Yeah.
the discomfort's okay. You don't need to sit in it all day, but it's just acknowledging that it's there, and then you can do something else with it. So that's fantastic. And Vicky's just said, yeah, I do that. You try to fix as well, Vicky. Oh, that's completely normal, but it's something helpful to be aware of. Absolutely. And Nicole, you want to be the fixer as well, and now also learning to about the let them theory. Great share. Yeah, excellent. If we that's something that you can go into, definitely let them feel that. Fantastic. Well, it sounds like we've got a few little things to think about when we head off into the world again. Um, Something that you will be able to receive should you go through this process of Project Reconnect is a little card. And this is just a subjective measure card where you can, in any day or any week, you can get into the habit of going, oh, okay, do I have, what's my level of self-awareness around myself and around others at the moment? Am I always like having this self-awareness, or is it something that I need to work on? Do I have a curious mindset or a judgment mindset? Am I trying to fix people, or am I, having a judgment mindset and not creating psychological safety? And it's just a nice little nudge, self-reflection tool for you to think, okay, where am I at the moment? And perhaps what might I like to focus on this week? And of course, a little nudge of, do I have tiny behaviors in place for your workplace, but also for your intimate relationships, your friendship or community? Because if you work on those relationships as well, that is going to help you in the workplace as well, because it does ripple effect. If you have toxic relationships in the workplace, that ripple effects out onto your home life. And if you have toxic relationships in your home life, that ripple effects into the workplace. So, it's great to focus on any and every kind of connection, of course. So that's just a little self-reflection card that people will get. So there we go. We've focused on this idea of that Project Reconnect really aims to reduce the risk of psychosocial hazards in the workplace through social connection, and really understanding the current landscape, its effects on employees is really crucial, because isolation and loneliness in the workplace can actually lead to decreased productivity, increased absenteeism, ill health in the person, of course, as well. So this social connection can really help with their health, with their well-being, job satisfaction, creativity. But we must look to the structure and function and quality of each social connection to make sure that we are hitting all three areas. And of course, we can do that by the Art of Connection framework. It really helps build that quality workplace connection and psychological safety within the team. So thank you very much for listening and for interacting. I hope that's been very useful for you. And thank you. That was Project Reconnect.
Charlotte, is there one final slide we can just share?
Here we go. There's two. Yep.
Oh, there's two. Oh, thank you. This is just what I wanted to share with everybody before we close for today. There are 2 dates coming up in the Health Dates calendar this year that I think are really relevant to this idea of connecting our teams together. The first one is Mindful in May. So that goes for the entire month. So doing some work on mindfulness and reconnection, that might be a really good time to do it. The other one is in August. There is a Loneliness Awareness Week, the 4th to the 10th of August. So either of those dates, you could leverage some of the external information, all of the general public publicity that is out there to try and promote this, but they would be really good times to focus on reconnecting your teams and perhaps bringing Project Reconnect into your workplace. So on the final slide, there is a QR code. We would love to partner with you. If you would like to inquire about Project Reconnect, you can just scan on the QR code there, put an online inquiry in. Project Reconnect's been running for a few years now. We're getting really, really good client feedback. There's a couple of quotes you can see up on the screen. Thanks for working with us. The team has thoroughly enjoyed and embraced the sessions. I really believe it has added such value. And the other one you can see is Charlotte is very authentic and engaging presenter and facilitator. So Project Reconnect can be run in your workplace, online or on site. It's a 1-hour workshop, or it can be extended to a half-day workshop where you will get obviously many more tools than in the 1 hour, but both of those options are available to you. Thanks, Charlotte. I learned a lot today. Thanks for coming and sharing everything about Project Reconnect.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.